And welcome back. This is Debbie from Cheyenne Life to the part 3 of the summer garden tour. This is the beginning of summer. And we have the peppers between the zucchini and cocozelle and yellow straight neck. And all of my peppers are doing wonderfully this season. Normally I kind of struggle with having good peppers every year because it is such a cool climate here. But this season looks like we might get something that's decent. We've got blooms on all of these, and they are doing great, except for the ones that I started from seed, which are still kind of small yet. They're not very, very small. I mean, they're almost caught up to the ones that I picked up at the store, and that was to replace the ones that I had gotten killed out by the hailstorm. So I had 8 of my own originally in this section. 4 of them got killed by the hailstorm, so I picked up 4 replacements. So we have those in there, and there's all kinds of different varieties in here. And then that's looking at the yellow straight neck squash again. And then through this section in the front, you see all these little bitty tiny seedlings. These are all California zinnias and cactus zinnias, so they're going to be really pretty big tall zinnias. And then through this section here, the lighter green, is some calendula. And I just planted these about a week ago, and just look at the size of the seedlings already. And then I've got my green beans in here, a lot of which had gotten killed out by the hailstorm. So I had to replace them with pole beans because I could not find any more of the bush beans that I had in here, this particular variety. So I've only got, I think, 7 plants left of the original bush that I had planted in here. The rest of them are replacement Kentucky Blue Lake pole beans. So I will have to be trellising these pretty soon because they're getting ready, looks like, to start making runners. And then I've got my Alaska snow peas through here in this section. And I did go ahead and plant another row of those right in between these 2 rows that are already up. And on this left side I have the Alaska snow peas, and on the right side I have Cascadia peas. So lots of peas here, and another row that'll be coming up, and then I'll probably be planting even more after that. And then through here I planted some more dark green zucchini right here in front of the tomatoes, which has not came up as yet. It only was planted a few days ago. And we've got a few more of our pepper plants in here. 2 of those in the front, and then there are 2 in the back. And unfortunately, there was a whole row of these and they got killed by the hailstorm, so that's why I went ahead and put in some more zucchini throughout this section. So we have dark green zucchini all the way through here, besides the peppers. And then here are my super sauce tomatoes, which I have been speaking about often. These are like aroma, except they are a lot larger. And they're called super sauce hybrid tomatoes, and they're from Burpees. And they're supposed to get to the size of anywhere from 2 to 4 pounds each. And I am literally looking forward to that. We've got a lot of blooms that are coming up on the tomato plants. We don't have a whole lot of leaf curling. I've got leaf curling in a couple of places, but it's not anything to worry about. Most of the leaves are fine. They're really starting to put on a lot of growth now. I just came in here and trimmed out some more of the leaves that needed to be trimmed out on the lower sections, and went ahead and pulled the leaves up to the next tier on most of these. So we're really beginning to take off now, so I look forward in July to just seeing massive amounts of growth on these. And then we've got our tomatillos here that replaced some of the black crim tomatoes that got killed out. So I've got this tomatillo here in the front, which is just loving being in the front for some reason, which is funny because this is actually the more shaded part of the garden. So this tomatillo is just growing by leaps and bounds. It was about half this size when we got it, and that's only been about 2 weeks ago. So it is just growing massively. And then I have a black Krim tomato that's left from the original ones that I planted, and I trimmed a lot of it down on the bottom level, and it has really started taking off. In fact, I've not seen so much growth on a tomato, I think, ever, because this tomato was probably 3/4 less the size than it is right now, because it had gotten broken with the hailstorm and a whole lot of other things, and it just really has put on a massive amount of growth, and the stem is really thickening up on it. And then another tomatillo here, because that was another one of the black Krim that got killed out. And then there's another black Krim tomato. This one had the top broken out, so it has now separated onto 2 different sections, when I'm going to leave it and let it do that because of how damaged that it was. So it's still kind of short, but it's starting to really spread out because of the 2 different sections, and we will see how it does. And then there's another black Krim there, and that one was the smallest one out of them, and I think that kind of saved it from the hailstorm, because somehow or the other the hail missed it. But it's really starting to put on some growth now too, even though it's still the smallest one. And then now we have another black Krim there, and that one is doing pretty good. It's about mid-size between the largest one and the smallest, so it's doing pretty well. It didn't get a whole lot of damage because it was shaded out by the other black Krim that was behind it, and now that one has been replaced by a tomatillo because it got killed. So there you can see more of the super sauce and how big they are in versus the black Krim and even the tomatillos. They are just beginning to become massive plants, but they only get about 4 to 5 feet tall, because again, a Roma tomato is a determinate tomato, and I don't know what hybrid that they put into these tomatoes, but it makes it an indeterminate. However, it still only gets about 4 to 5 feet tall. They will just really bush out and put on the super sauce tomatoes later. So it still, to me, kind of seems like it is halfway between a determinate and an indeterminate. It will keep putting on flowers and fruit, but the plants don't get very large. And then I did go ahead and scratch out this section here all the way along the front of my tomatoes and red curry squash, and put more basil in this section. So we've got basil kind of growing all over the garden and in pots and everything. Like I said, we did a massive expansion this year on this garden. And then of course I've got the red curry squash that are here between the tomatoes and just all along this front. And they can grow, you know, really long runners and things like that, but they can all go between the tomatoes. I don't care. That just doesn't bother me at all. And then we've got a cherry tomato over here, which is just really starting to put on some massive growth as well. I did come in and trim some of the lower leaves off. And then we've got cucumbers. The cucumbers are really starting to put on some growth just recently. And I don't know if it's because the soil temperatures have increased or what's going on, because to me the temperatures during the day have actually cooled down. We've been having upper 60s and lower 70s for the past week and a half now. Today is the first day it's getting back up to 79, and then after that it's going to be in the lower 80s, but the night temperatures have still been in the upper 50s to low 60s. So for cucumbers and melons and things like that, it's not optimum, but they do still seem to be putting on some growth. And as you can see here, this is the original cucumber, the only one that I had left after the hailstorm, and it has put on some massive amounts of growth and has started climbing the trellis, as you can see there. And we do have some blooms, and we have some cucumbers that are starting to set. And then we had to replace, during the hailstorm or after the hailstorm, most of these cucumbers because I only had the one left. So all of these are small because of that. I've got 4 here in the back, or sorry, in the front. These are the 4 in the front that are the original tender green burpless cucumbers. And then we've got some straight dates and tender green along the sides. And in the back is a replacement of a cucumber called a white spine cucumber, because I wanted something to put on a massive amount of growth and produce cucumbers pretty quickly. And these are supposed to be maturing in 52 days. So a lot more of a short season cucumber. And to me, a cucumber tastes like a cucumber tastes like a cucumber. I don't care if it's an English cucumber or white spine or a white cucumber. They all taste like cucumbers to me. So I don't care what kind of variety it is, as long as it just has cucumbers and I can pickle, or I can eat fresh, or just have for salads, whatever. And then I have my original place that I put my beans right here. And we've got the asparagus beans, or the oriental beans if you want to call them that, or Asian beans. So I've got those here, and they are really starting to put on their runners now, and we'll probably start climbing the trellises. And then I have the Blue Lake long pole beans here as well. Now these are a different variety of Blue Lake than the other ones that I've shown you. So I'm not real sure what the difference is going to be, but to me, green beans pretty much all taste the same except for the wax beans. I'm not a real fan of the green beans that are called wax beans, like Cherokee wax and yellow wax and stuff like that. To me, they are exactly that. They're a little bit more waxy, more greasy, and I don't really care for them. And then I did tuck away some coriander or cilantro here in the front of the green beans, and they companion plant very, very well. So we've got those along there. Sorry, you can see my shadow. And then I've got the dill here in the front, and I just harvested the dill yesterday. I had cut off a lot of the growth on this dill because I had started trying to go to seed. So I did trim all of that back, and I've got that drying on the inside. I picked up this lavender plant yesterday at Lowe's because I've had a heck of a time trying to get lavender seed started to replace a lavender that I had lost over the winter. So I picked this up and hope that it does well. It looks beautiful, but I don't think it's a variety that we can actually use, which was an oops on my part. So I'll have to find out. I'll have to study a little bit more about the type of lavender that it is. And then of course I had picked up a couple of German Queen just to try those. Gave them to my daughter, and she tucked them away in this section. And they seem to be just doing wonderfully. They have an entire different leaf pattern than the other tomatoes that I'm growing. So they just seem to be doing wonderfully. One of them had gotten the top broken out from the hailstorm, and it's just now starting to really come back out. And it did make 2 new leaders, or 2 new tops, as you want to say that, unfortunately, because of the broken top. So we'll see how that does, how big it gets. Not sure. And we have a sunflower tucked away in between them as well. Here in the back we have 8 more red curry squash. These on the last video were still together with their partners, as you can say, because I plant them in groups of 3. So we had 3 in each of those sections, and I had to come through and thin those out. And unfortunately I didn't have any more room to put any more red curry, so I did have to just dispose of those plants. And it's unfortunate because they were beautiful and healthy. I have a clematis there that you can see that's climbing up a pole that I put, a natural pole right there in the middle. And it is getting ready to bloom, and I had thought I had killed it out, and I really didn't mind if I killed it out because it's in the middle of the garden. But it looks like I didn't. It came back in full fury. So I went ahead and got it running up a pole, so that way it's just not spread out all over the place, which usually happens. I've got some acorn squash tucked here in the back, or in the front of the tomatoes, if you want to say that. So these are just standard acorn squash. I think they're table queen acorn squash there. And so I have 3 plants of those, and then I have 3 up here in this section that I have pulled out of thinning out some other plants. 2 of them are kind of struggling, one of them looking beautiful. And that happens sometimes when you're transplanting out from another section. I have my artichokes here in the back, which are starting to put on some more leaves and getting bigger. So I'm hoping to have some artichokes before September. And then here in the this section I have the giant ox hearts, which are now really starting to put on some size. The stems are getting much bigger. I did come in and trim those down a little bit as far as the lower leaves and limbs. So those are looking great. And then I have the Black Prince and also a Cherokee Purple. And this is going to go into a part 4. Oh boy.